All right, so chapter 11, part 1. Remember, chapter 10 left off with May's funeral, and everyone was gathered around the daughters of May. And June and August and Lily were all gathered around the coffin, eating manna and throwing seeds onto the coffin, right? So, chapter 11. It takes honeybee workers 10 million foraging trips to gather enough nectar to make 1 pound of honey from bees of the world. So again, think about what could that quote be foreshadowing? What could it be talking about that's going to happen in this chapter? For May's burial, August shut down honey making, honey selling, even bee patrol. She and June took the meals that Rosalind cooked to their rooms. I barely saw August except in the mornings when she crossed the yard headed toward the woods. She would wave at me, and if I ran over and asked where she was going, could I come too, she would smile and say, not today, that she was still doing her mourning. Mourning. What does that mean? It's not mourning like the time of day. Notice that it's spelled differently. So mourning is when somebody's trying to get over a loss. All right, so they're still thinking about that person that passed on. Sometimes she would stay out in the woods past lunch. I had to fight an impulse to say, but I need to talk to you. Life was so funny. I'd spent over a month here dilly-dallying around, refusing to tell August about my mother when I could have done it so easy. And now that I really needed to tell her, I couldn't. You just don't interrupt somebody's morning with your own problems. I helped Rosalind some in the kitchen, but mostly I was free to lie around and write in my notebook. I wrote so many things from my heart that I used up all the pages. It surprised me no end how much I missed our ordinary routine life. The simple act of pouring wax into a candle mold or repairing a broken hive box. Kneeling between August and June for evening prayers to Our Lady. I walked in the woods in the afternoon when I was sure August wasn't out there. I'd pick out a tree and say, if a bird lands in that tree before I count to 10, that's my mother sending her sign of love. When I got to 7, I would start counting real slow, dragging it out. I would sometimes get to 50 and no bird. I studied my map of South Carolina at night when everyone was asleep, trying to figure where me and Rosalie might head next. I'd always wanted to see the rainbow-colored houses of Charlton, how they had real horse and buggies on the street. But as appealing as all that was, it nearly crushed me to think of leaving. And even if another cantaloupe truck miraculously appeared and drove us down there, Rosalind and I would have to get jobs somewhere, rent a place to stay, and hope nobody asked any questions. Sometimes I didn't even feel like getting out of bed. I took to wearing my days of the week panties out of order. It could be Monday and I'd have on underwear saying Thursday. I just didn't care. The only time I saw June was when Neil came over, which was every single day. She would come out wearing hoop earrings and off they'd go, taking long rides in his car, which she said did her a world of good. The wind rearranged her thoughts, and the countryside made her see all the life still left out there waiting to be lived. Neil'd get behind the wheel and June would slide over on the front seat so she was practically under the wheel with him. Honestly, I worried for their safety. Zach showed up a few times just to visit and found me in a lawn chair with my legs tucked under me, reading back over my notebook. Sometimes when I saw him, my stomach went through a series of sudden drops and lurches. You are 1/3 friend, 1/3 brother, 1/3 bee partner, and 1/3 boyfriend, I said. To him, he explained to me I'd one too many thirds in the equation, which of course I knew, as I am bad in math, but not that bad. We stared at each other as I tried to figure out which third would get deleted. I said, if I was a Negro girl. He placed his fingers across my lips, so I tasted his saltiness. We can't think of changing our skin, he said. Change the world. That's how we gotta think. All he could talk about was going to law school and busting ass. He didn't say white ass, and I was thankful for that, but I believe that's what he meant. There was a place inside him now that hadn't been there before. Heated, charged, angry. Coming into his presence was like stepping up to a gas heater, to a row of blue fire burning in the dark, wet curve of his eyes. His conversations were all about the race riots in New Jersey, policemen taking their nightsticks to Negro boys who threw rocks, about Molotov cocktails, sit-ins, righteous causes, Malcolm X, and the Afro-American Unity Group giving the Ku Klux Klan a taste of their own medicine. I wanted to say to Zach, remember when we ate May's Kool-Aid ice under the pine trees? Remember when you sang Blueberry Hill? Remember? After non-stop mourning all week, just when I thought we'd go on forever in our private grieving worlds and never again eat another meal together or work side by side in the honey house, I found Rosalind in the kitchen laying the table for four, using the Sunday china plates with pink flowers and lacy scallops around the edge. I broke out with real happiness because life seemed to be headed back to normal. Rosalind put a beeswax candle on the table, and I believe that was the first candlelit meal of my entire life. Here was the menu. Smothered chicken, rice and gravy, butter beans, sliced tomatoes, biscuits, and candlelight. We had barely started in when Rosalind said to June, "So you going to marry Neil or not?" August and I both stopped chewing and sat up. "That's for me to know and you to find out," June answered. "And how are we supposed to find out if you won't tell us?" said Rosalind. When we finished the food, August produced 4 bottles of ice-cold Coca-Cola from the refrigerator, along with 4 little packages of salted peanuts. We watched her pop the tops off the Cokes. "What the heck is this?" said June. "It's Lily's and my favorite dessert," August told her, smiling over at me. We like to pour our peanuts straight into the bottle, but if you eat yours separately, you can eat yours separately if you prefer." "I think I prefer mine separate," said June, rolling her eyes. "I wanted to make a cobbler," Rosalind told June, "but August said it was going to be Cokes and peanuts." She said Cokes and peanuts the way you might say snot and boogers. August laughed. "They don't know a delicacy when they see one, do they, Lily?" "No, ma'am," I said, shaking the peanuts into my bottle, where they caused a little reaction of foam, then floated on the brown liquid. I drank and munched with the glory of salt and sweet in my mouth at the same time, all the while looking toward the window, at birds flying home to their nests and moonlight just starting to pour down on the Midlands of South Carolina, this place where I was tucked away with 3 women whose faces shone with candle glow. When we had drained the Cokes, we went to the parlor to say our Hail Marys together for the first time since May had died. I knelt on the rug by June, while Rosalind, as usual, helped herself to the rocker. August stood beside Our Lady and folded May's suicide letter so it resembled a tiny paper airplane. She wedged it into a deep crevice that ran down the side of Our Lady's neck. Then she patted Black Mary's shoulder and let out a long sigh that made the airless room feel alive again, and said, "Well, that's that." I'd been staying up in May's room with Rosalind ever since May died, but when Rosalind and I started to climb the stairs that night, on impulse I said, "You know what? I think I'll move back into the honey house." Found out I'd missed having a room to myself. Rosalind put her hands on her waist. "Good Lord, all that fuss you made about me moving out and leaving you, now here you are wanting to leave me." Actually, she didn't care one bit that I wanted to move out. She just couldn't pass up a chance to give me a hard time. "Come on, I'll help you carry your stuff over there," she said. "You mean now?" "No time like the present," she told me. I guess she'd missed having a room to herself, too. After Rosalind left, I looked around my old room in the honey house. It was so quiet. All I could think was how this time tomorrow the truth would be out, how everything would change. I got my mother's photograph and the Black Mary picture from my bag, ready to show August. I slid them under my pillow, but when I turned out the light, fear filled up my hard, narrow bed. It told me all the ways life could go wrong. It had me in a girls' prison camp in the Florida Everglades. Why the Everglades? I don't know. Except I've always thought that would be the worst place to be in prison. Think of all those alligators and snakes, not to mention heat worse than we had up here. And people had been known to fry not just eggs, but bacon and sausage on South Carolina sidewalks. I could not imagine breathing in Florida. I'd be down there suffocating and never see August again. It was fear all night long. I would have given anything to be back in May's room listening to Rosalind snore. The next morning I slept late, considering the on and off night I'd had. Plus I'd been falling into lazy habits without the honey house to keep me industrious. The smell of fresh baked cake wafted all the way from the pink house to my cot, curled into my nostrils, and woke me up. When I got to the kitchen, there were August, June, and Rosalind, dusted with flour, baking these small one-layer cakes the size of honey buns. They were singing while they worked, singing like the Supremes, like the Marvelettes, like the Crystals wiggling their butts to da-do ron-ron. "What are you all doing?" I said, grinning from the doorway. They stopped singing and giggled, giving each other little shoves and nudges. "Well, look who's up," said Rosalind. June had on lavender pedal pushers with daisy buttons up the sides, the likes of which I'd never seen before. She said, "We're baking cakes for Mary Day. It's about time you got over here and helped us. Didn't August tell you this was Mary Day?" I glanced at August. No, ma'am, she didn't. We'll stop there for now.